Alright guys, Heczquarters here, and today I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. A remarkable set of developments and leaks coming out over the last 24 hours with regard to who the replacement for Dashy might well be within an OpTic team. Some people are looking at Beans, currently Boston substitute known as the EU Dashy for some time, might be replacing Dashy on the starting team, and where these rumours are coming from is pretty remarkable, but might just be pure bait, and we're going to dive into that in a few seconds. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss as always. It's been an absolute madness on the OpTic side the last few days. We know that Arcitys and Pred were linked to the team. Arcitys, as we saw yesterday, pretty much confirmed that indeed there were discussions that went on there between Arcitys and the OpTic guys. Potentially they wanted him. He certainly wanted to go there. Then for contractual reasons it couldn't work out. The Pred situation is unknown. Maybe a similar story. OpTic wanted Pred. Either Seattle just straight up said no, or Pred said, you know what, I'd prefer to stay with my team for the rest of the season because they just got second at Major 1. So it's understandable they would do exactly that. Now, the question has been, what is the problem within the team? We saw that last night, what Karma's perspective was on that. Maybe moving Scump to a flex role. Personally, I think that's got to be the way to go for this OpTic team. I'm not sure Scump really has what it takes at this point in his career to be the SMG duo that Shotzzy needs, but he still has what it takes in terms of like pure aggression, right? I mean, the guy's still unbelievably good when he's playing the right role. And I do think with the kind of movement in this game, that Scump is better suited to the flex position than he is to the second SMG or like the primary slaying SMG, with Shotzzy being the fast-paced aggressive guy. That's where I would put Scump. To do that, you probably need to bring an SMG player in instead. We've talked about a scene, we've talked about very few limited other candidates they could potentially look at, but maybe they will keep Scump on the SMG with Shotzzy and they will trade out Dashy for another AR and potentially put iLLeY on the main. Who knows what they're planning to do, but many options OpTic have, well, at least in terms of what they can do with the team in terms of roles, but not that many options in terms of players remaining. Now, one player that has been talked about the last few days has been Beans. This guy was hyped up last season massively on the European Challenger side, came into the Boston Breach substitute team. He's been killing it so far. He's on their academy roster, right? And he's the substitute for their starting team. Did get a brief tryout in the starting roster when Awakening was unwell at Major 1. Played well, but the team lost regardless in that series. Bound up top 16 of the tournament, largely because their Search and Destroy was way worse than Vegas is. So Beans has, of course, been a player that's talked about for some time, known as an incredibly talented AR player. That's why he's been known as the EU Dashy and various other nicknames involving Dashy over the last couple of seasons, because I mean, yeah, known as incredible gun skill just like Dashy has, but also not from the American region, of course, where, well, Dashy's of course Canadian, but would be a remarkable storyline if it was somehow minus Dashy plus EU Dashy in Beans. And we've seen even at Major 1 in the Challenger side where the Boston Academy didn't do that well, but Beans still had a 1.31 in the tournament, which is not exactly a massive surprise given the ability of this guy that we've seen for some time. Even in the breaking point kind of next tournament we did at the start of the title, Beans was arguably the standout player of that entire tourney from the North American side. And even Crimsix had his thoughts on this last season, saying that Wardy and Beans, those guys, I think he played against Wardy especially in some event, maybe at the Prime. I think maybe they played Wardy in groups there when he was on the subliners, and he was like, Wardy almost beat us single-handedly, and Beans is in a similar category. So Crim was like, look, if I had a team to build from the ground up, I would get Wardy, I would get Beans, and that would be my team. And Crim probably has a good idea what he's talking about here. So you know, that's the level of gas that these guys have got recently. And maybe OpTic, despite the fact that OpTic never look into challenges, it's not a thing that they do, it's not a thing that I would expect them to do, but in this situation with the difficulties they have, no Arcitys, no Pred, what are their options? Will they be forced to look into challenges for pretty much the first time ever? Like, it's not really an OpTic thing to do, to go down to challenges and find the best players. They pick up established names for understandable reasons, but nonetheless, maybe these are the best options out there as it stands. So last night it was all kicking off, largely due to this here from Hicksy. So Hicksy, of course, the Toronto Ultra substitute, comes out and says, well, 2 emojis. Now, look, this type of stuff makes me think this is all bait, but we'll see some decent evidence for this to be true in a second here. I do imagine there is some embellishment happening here, but anyway, Hicksy says the following. So he's got a pair of glasses and he's got some beans. So this surely referring to optical, optics, OpTic, right? And then you've got beans. So OpTic beans is basically what this is saying. Now, you know, one clue I'll let you guys in on here is that when all the players are talking about stuff like this, and when Beans is replying to everything, and as you guys can see, even in the replies here, it is one indication that this stuff probably isn't happening. We've seen in the past with even Arcitys, right, where he came out and, you know, was mysteriously going over the OpTic stuff in the store on the game. It's like when you see that, you think, okay, probably they're just joking around here, because like if they're trying to push the bait a bit too far, that's when you can think, well, it's probably not going to happen. It's the same thing really with the Dashy thing. Like, let's say OpTic were just baiting around, I would maybe have expected Shotzzy or someone someone else to come in Dashy's reply and say, oh, you know, farewell Dashy, it's been great working with you or whatever, been some great memories, before it's been officially confirmed. And if they do that, you think, oh yeah, they're probably just joking here. When they don't do that, you think, okay, maybe this is legitimate. It's the same thing with the Pred story, I think. I'm pretty sure Accuracy went in Zuma's chat and was joking around about the OpTic Pred thing. Is that, okay, when you see that, you know it's not going to happen. So just want to keep in mind here with the amount of things you see Beans replying to. But regardless, Scott here, 011, comes out with the following. And if this is true, this is like so crazy to me. This is on like, you know, UK football levels. I guess it happens around the world as well. But there's been some stories of Arsenal fans and Liverpool fans tracking planes, like tracking trains and planes and stuff to figure out which players are which location, looking at their Instagram story, like analysing the clouds to figure out, okay, they're on this train, it's this time of day, doing all this investigative work. And it feels like the COD scene isn't too far behind, because 11 comes out with this, what are you doing at the Heczquarters at Beans, and shows his Snapchat location thing, right? And here he is. Now, I believe we saw this a few months ago, maybe it was at the start of the season or the last mid-season, who knows. I think it was Fame, maybe, one of the substitute players for the Minnesota Rokkr, and he was spotted at the Minnesota headquarters or something like that, or he was spotted at the venue and like on Snap Maps basically, and this is absolute madness. So anyway, if this is actually Ben, now it must be said, of course, this is open to manipulation. It's not like this is a difficult Photoshop job to do if you wanted to, you know, put him on this map theoretically, but nonetheless, it is still something we've got to mention. This might well be legitimate. The guy who either made this or screenshotted this says it's legitimate, and Zuma was looking into it last night. So this is the location where Beans is supposedly sitting here on Snap Maps, and this aligns perfectly with where the Heczquarters is. Now, the Heczquarters is public information. I'm not like doxing where the Heczquarters is or anything. You can literally Google Maps Heczquarters, which is what I did, and here it comes. So the location is public. You guys can see here in Frisco, Texas, of course, and if we zoom in, we'll find right here, just across the road from the Toyota Stadium, National Soccer Hall of Fame, we can see Jake's Burgers and Beer just down the road, and if we, you know, swap over to this screen right here, we can see we've got Jake's Burgers and Beer here, we've got, you know, the MLS National Soccer Hall of Fame, we've got Hikari Sushi and Grill just around the corner, and if we compare that to the map, we've also got Hikari Sushi and Grill. So, I mean, here we go. This is, obviously, it's either very nice that he's at the Heczquarters to sign the paperwork with Hex, or this is just bait, of course, and it's actually not true at all. So, intrude to your thoughts in the comment section below, right, because this would be quite the turn of events. And also, I'm not sure if a one-man change just minus Dashy plus Beans, like, I rate Beans very highly, but in terms of what this team needs, is that really a change that's going to propel them in the right direction? I'm not sure. I feel like there's other things they might need to consider. I would want to put Scump on the flex, no doubt. I would think, okay, you know, should iLLeY be staying on this team given that what we've seen the last few weeks in terms of performance there? Beans is great, don't get me wrong, but if they do this, it seems like a bit of a questionable change, just a one-for-one, in my opinion, in that particular role. Yes, Dashy's got his problems out of the game, but at least he's a top-level proven player, MVP winner, multiple event winner, even though only a couple of events, whereas Beans would come an awful lot of pressure, and, you know, I think Beans could handle that pressure, but nonetheless seems a bit of a questionable change. So, look, who knows, right? But apparently Beans is at the Heczquarters signing the contract with Hex. I'm not sure I fully buy it, but regardless, Zuma was looking into this last night, was talking to the guy that screenshotted this and comes up with, you know, where'd you get that pic, bro? I've got Ben on Snap, you know, just about 3 hours ago, that was there. So either this is true, or the European amateurs are at it again. We're trying to bait everyone, but, you know, you guys can make your mind up in the comment section below. And as I say, just because Beans is replying to this and kind of laughing about it, and then he replies, Breaking Point tweeted out as well with another kind of additional piece of information, and he's also replying to be like, okay, what's going on here, lads? And even Zach Sedenya, right, the coach of the Boston side, says, yo, Beans, what are you doing, man? And Beans just replies kind of nonchalantly as follows. So, you know, if this is actually happening, would Beans be talking like this? Would Zed be talking like this? I don't necessarily know. At the same time, it's like, you know, would Boston let Beans go? Just because they've just got top 16. Beans has been their guy to potentially kind of, you know, replace the guys in the starting lineup. Nero and Vivid arguably are their SMG duo to build around, but Method and Awakening, depending on what happens there, Beans is there on the bench to step in. The guy's a ridiculously good sniper rifle player as well. Like, I think he could be very good for OpTic in that sense also, but I just don't see the way that OpTic have gone the last couple of years and their history as an organization to go for a guy like Beans. It might be the thing to do, but I just don't know that OpTic would actually do this, and would prefer to get more proven players, whatever that turns out to be. Now, Doug as well, just to add more fuel to the fire of this idea that if everyone's talking and baiting and joking about it, it's probably not going to happen. I'd love to be proved wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's been a long time since we've had an OpTic player that's like a British player on OpTic. Like, okay, Swanee was on OpTic Nation way back in the day, but, you know, it'd be an awesome story. I'd love to see it, but I'm just, I'm not going to get too hyped about this until it's actually, the paperwork is officially signed and we get actual rumors and leaks about this, because I believe that Ronnie even said that he hasn't heard about this happening, and, he said a lot of things, some of which have been true, some of which haven't been true, or at least there's been some element of truth, and he hasn't really heard anything about this, so we'll see. And Doug, of course, is teamed with Beans right now on the Boston Academy, so that's why, he's like, oh yeah, goodbye Beans, miss you already. Would he tweet this if it was actually happening? I don't really think so, and Beans even tweets this, it's all fine, everything's on fire around me. Kind of reminds me of what we saw the other day from Arcitys, where he hops onto the store here, sees the OpTic stuff, and is like, oh, what's going on, guys? And as I say, the same story with Accuracy going in Zoomer's chat and talking about Pred. It's like, when you see it, it's probably not going to happen. Whereas, if there's things you don't see, and there's rumors going around and you don't see anything about it for, by pros baiting on the timeline, then more than likely there is some more credence to those rumors. That is at least my kind of philosophy and logic that I've come up with relatively recently. Now, another thing to mention here is just because we haven't seen much from iLLeY. We saw a tweet from iLLeY the other day where he was tweeting about some giveaway or something sponsorship they were doing. And in fairness, with iLLeY still contracted, at least at that time, he's obliged to retweet sponsor stuff, whatever. Now, last night there was this that came up from OpTic, ranked from best to worst, and as Rambo says, 2143, which is completely faded, but whatever, I don't want to get into that. You guys know my thoughts on Black Ops 3, but iLLeY actually agrees, 3 is greater than everything else. Now, iLLeY just replying to Rambo here, like, do you think there's anything in this? But just the fact that iLLeY isn't just completely blanking them, like, if iLLeY had actually been dropped, I would almost expect iLLeY to just, not exactly unfollow all the OpTic guys, but you know what I mean, like, separate himself and then not reply to their tweets, kind of get off Twitter for a few days. But just with iLLeY replying to Rambo, the coach of the team, makes me think that iLLeY might still be there on the roster, and if it is the case, it's definitely an interesting decision that they have made. If iLLeY is to stay, but Dashy is to go, because then what do you do as the main AR? Do they keep it around and just swap out main ARs? But it's like, if you're doing that, do you solve the issue? I don't necessarily think so. Yes, like, let's say a minus Dashy plus iLLeY star, I think iLLeY would bring a lot to that team, but, nonetheless, you lose an awful lot of firepower, and I don't think the many AR duos in the league are going to be particularly scared about facing iLLeY and iLLeY as it currently stands on this title. So, that's an option. The SMGs as well, Wardy, Asim, very few other options as well. Pred would have been ideal, but probably not going to happen. So, yeah, OpTic still find themselves in a difficult spot. And, as I even say, Formal right here, Cali vibes are simply a match. I know that people have been saying get Formal back in the team, but Formal has always made it clear he loves it out in Cali. He's back there again at the moment. Obviously, he has been in Texas at the Heczquarters to play with the OpTic guys and OpTic Halo and all this. So, it's not out of the question that he could make the return. But of course, like, he's playing in the Halo team. He's not just going to come back to Call of Duty and play a game that he's not going to enjoy. So that's not going to happen. The Karma thing's probably not going to happen. So yeah, the options are very limited. And maybe it does get to a point where legitimately OpTic are so kind of strapped for options that they do have to go down to challenges. And going down to challenges isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's some really talented guys down there that I think could benefit the OpTic starting team, but it's just not what they've traditionally done. So in tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. Is there any legitimacy behind this OpTic Beans thing? It would be such a hilarious storyline if it was to be true. I'd love for it to be the case, but I'm not kind of holding my breath quite yet for OpTic Beans to become official. But very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.